Good day, and this is Q from Golden Circle Games, and we're talking about another deck tech today. This one's going to be Vilis, Broker of Blood. After the ultimate fight between Urza, Multani and K'rrik, K'rrik lay dying as his wounds refused to heal. Must this really be the end for me? He sighed, believing these to be his final words. Suddenly Vilis' words came back to him, and he knew what he should do, but feared what it would mean for his soul. I summon thee, Lord and Broker of Blood. Let us enter into negotiations. Vilis appeared before him and looked at him appraisingly. You have not much to broker, boy, his voice deep booming among the blackness of the death that started to shroud K'rik's mind. What will you have of me, Lord? And I shall be your minion of horrors, if you would but spare me this pain. Vilis smiled. And so the deal is struck. Vilis, Broker of Blood is a 5/3 black, 8/8 demon with flying. His ability allows you to pay a single black mana and pay 2 life to give a creature -1/-1 till the end of turn. His more important ability is that whenever you lose life, you draw that many cards. The aim of the deck is to draw as many cards as we can and play tutors to get cards out like K'rrik, who allow us to pay into Vilis' ability for free, or we can tutor other cards that allow us to get value from life gain, life loss. The main win con of this deck is to drain the life from our opponents until they're all dead. This deck is currently standing at around $519 or €334. We start as always with the mana rocks, so Soul Ring, we can tap it to add 2 colourless mana. Charcoal Diamond enters the battlefield tapped. We can tap it to add a black. Arcane Signet, tap it, add a mana of any colour and commander's colour identity. We have Jet Medallion, your blacks cost 1 less to play. Thought Vessel, which has the all important you have no maximum hand size on it, and we can also tap this to add a colourless. Altar of the Pantheon, your devotion of each colour and each colour combination of colours is increased by 1. And we can tap to add 1 mana of any colour. If you control a god or a demigod or a legendary enchantment, you gain 1 life, which is somewhat important, but it's mostly the fact that your devotion to each colour is increased by 1, and that might matter for some of our spells. We have Thran Dynamo, tap, add 3 colourless mana. We have Paradise Plume. As Paradise Plume enters the battlefield, choose a colour. Whenever a player casts a spell of the chosen colour, you may gain 1 life, and then we can tap it to add 1 mana of the chosen colour. Nyx Lotus, which is where our devotion comes into play, it enters the battlefield tapped, but we can choose a colour, add an amount of mana equal to the amount of devotion to that colour, and if we have Altar of the Pantheon out, we get 1 increased devotion for that. Then we have Gilded Lotus, which we can tap to add 3 mana of any colour. And we have Caged Sun. As Caged Sun enters the battlefield, choose a colour. Creatures of the chosen colour get +1/+1, and the all important, whenever a land's ability causes you to add 1 mana of the chosen colour, add 1 additional mana of that colour. Then we have our all important K'rrik, Son of Yawgmoth, who's 4 and 3 for Exim, which means you can pay 2 life for each black mana, and then he has lifelink, and for each black in a cost you may pay 2 life rather than pay its mana cost, and whenever you cast a black spell, put a 1/1 counter on K'rrik, Son of Yawgmoth. Cryptghast, Extort, whenever you cast this spell you may pay Urza. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. Never use that, but whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you add an additional black to your mana pool. Nakana Revenant, whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you add an additional mana to your mana pool, a black mana to your mana pool. Pay 1 back. Nakana Revenant becomes gets +1/+1 to the end of the turn, which is okay, is sort of a secondary thing, I suppose. We have Bubbling Muck, which is a great way of getting our commander out fairly quickly, which comes in, enters until the end of the turn. Whenever a player taps a swamp for mana, it produces an additional black. Dark Ritual, 1 mana to get 3 mana back. Blood Celebrant, which matters really for our card draw more than our mana gain, but if we have K'rrik out, we can pay 3 life and add 1 mana of any colour to our mana pool, but for the most part we can just filter our lands through our lands through this and just get card draw with everything we cast. And then last but not least, we have Black Market. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add a black for each charge counter on Black Market, which can be pretty good for our later end game spells if it doesn't get removed before that. Moving on to some of our removal now, we've got Massacre Worm. When Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 till the end of the turn, and whenever a creature an opponent controlled dies, that player loses 2 life. Mutilate, all creatures get -1/-1 till the end of the turn for each swamp you control, which can be quite devastating with Urborg out. Nightmare on Making, choose one, exile each creature with a power greater than the number of cards in your hand, or you can exile each creature with a power less than the number of cards in your hand. Obviously we're going to have a lot of cards in our hand hopefully in this game. Toxic Deluge is a classic removal spell. As an additional cost, cast this spell, pay X life. When we pay that life, we draw that many cards. All creatures get -1/-1 till the end of turn. Eat to extinction, exile target creature or planeswalker. Look at the top card of your library, you may put that into the graveyard. You've got Font of Agonies. Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies, and then we can pay 1 and a black, remove 4 blood counters to destroy target creature. Then we have Erebos' Intervention. Choose one, target creature gets -X/-X till the end of turn, and you gain X life. Or exile up to twice X cards from all graveyards, and we can pay X and a black for that one. Go for the Throat, destroy target non-artifact creature, and then we have Scour from Existence, which will allow us to exile target permanent at instant speed. We have Slaughter Pact, which is a free spell, destroy target non-black creature at the beginning of your next step's upkeep. Pay 2 and a black. If you don't, you lose the game. Vernus Hunger has Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you have the City's Blessing instead, each opponent sacrifices half the creatures he or she controls rounded up. This is great for protecting us against go wider decks. Archfiend of Depravity also protects us from go wider decks. Flying at the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 target creatures he or she controls and then sacrifices the rest. Our disruption spells now. Imp's Mischief. Change the target of the spell with a single target. You lose life equal to that spell's converted mana cost. That can draw us cards too. Withering Boon, pay 3 life, counter target summon spell. That's counter target creature spell. We get to, if we got Vilis out, we get to draw cards for this. Sudden Spoiling, we have split second until the end of turn. Creatures target player controls lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 0/2, which is pretty devastating when somebody's swinging in for a Kratos Behemoth win or something like that. Now, because we have Vilis who draws us cards, we don't have an awful lot of card draw in the deck, but we do have some tutors, a little bit of card draw. Burning Rune Demon, flying, and when Burning Rune Demon enters the battlefield, you may search your library for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon that have different names, and if you do, reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them, put the chosen card in your hand and the other into your graveyard and shuffle your library. Demonic Tutor, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand and then shuffle. Diabolic Tutor, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand and then shuffle. Then we have Mastermind's Acquisition. choose one, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, and the one we'll never use because we can't use it in Commander, choose a card you own from outside of the game, put it into your hand. Forever Young, put any number of target cards from your graveyard onto creature cards from your graveyard onto top of your library and draw a card. Pretty good if we want to get one of our creature cards back. Sign in Blood is 2 black. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Could, if we have a commander out, draw us 4 cards. Then we have Alhammar's Archive. If you gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. And if you draw a card except the first one you draw each turn, draw 2 cards instead. So we're doubling up those life gain triggers, we're doubling up the card draw triggers. We have Bolus's Citadel. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast spells this way, pay life equal to their converted mana cost rather than paying their mana cost. And we can also in a pinch sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. So we have some cards to allow us to get some creatures or artifacts out of the graveyard. We got Beacon of Unrest, put target artifact or creature from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and then shuffle Beacon of Unrest into your library. Dread Return, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and we can flash that back, sacrifice 3 creatures for its flashback payment. Reanimate is 1 mana, put a target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost, and it can be brutal if we get our commander back. Animate Dead, enchant creature in a graveyard. When Animate Dead enters the battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, it loses enchant card in the graveyard and gains enchant creature on the battlefield. Return enchanted creature to the battlefield under your control and attach Animate Dead to it, and when the Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. Enchanted creature gets -1/-0. We have Whip of Erebos. Creatures you control have lifelink, and then we can pay 2 and 2 black, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, it gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step, and if it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate this ability only once anytime you can cast a sorcery. We really want it for that lifelink ability. So a few of our random picks for the deck here. We got Infernal Darkness, which is an enchantment that has a cumulative upkeep. So we pay 1 and 1 life. All mana producing lands produce black instead of their normal mana, so it can really shut some decks down. We really want to sort of offer this as an opportunity for our opponents to pick when we go for Burning Rune Demon. Usually they want that in the graveyard, so we get the other thing that we want. But I have on one occasion had somebody give me this card and then regret it almost immediately, because then I played it and they couldn't cast any of their spells. Venser Journal. You have no maximum hand size at the beginning of your upkeep. You gain 1 life for each card in your hand. It's going to be pretty powerful when we have some of our life gain strategies out there. And then we have Elixir of Immortality. Pay 2, you gain 5 life. Shuffle Elixir of Immortality and your graveyard into your library. Moving on to more synergistic cards now, we have Grey Merchant of Asphodel. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain that much life for the life that was lost this way. Psychosis Crawler. Psychosis Crawler power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. Veto Thorn of Dusk Rose. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life, and we can pay 3 and 2 black. Creatures you control gain lifelink until the end of turn. We have Blood Tithe. Each opponent loses 3 life, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. Essence Harvest, target player loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You can even cast this yourself, on yourself. If you have Vilis out, you gain 8 life. You lose 8 life, then you gain 8 life, and you draw 8 cards essentially. Where X is the power of Vilis. Exsanguinate, X and 2 black. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. If we can get some of our big mana producers out, this can be a game win for us. And we have Repay in Kind. Each player's life total becomes the lowest life total among all players, which can be pretty devastating if people are attacking us every turn to try and get us out of the game as quickly as possible. We can switch things up and we can make everybody's life total as bad as ours. Torment of Hailfire, X and 2 black. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. Pretty devastating when we get our life, our mana sinks out, our mana producers out. Revenge of Ravens is a bit of a deterrent for people to attack us. Whenever a creature you control, a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Sanguine Bond, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. I refuse to put Exquisite Blood in this deck because it kind of feels like a bit of a puff out win con. If we can get off some of our other spells, this is devastating, but not the infinite win con that this will go with Exquisite Blood. Sir Conrad the Grim, whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent, and we can pay 1 and a black. Each player mills a card. And this goes really well with Mind Crank. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from his or her library into his or her graveyard, which means that if they keep putting creatures into the graveyard from the top of their library, Mind Crank and Sir Conrad trigger so that we can keep putting stuff into their graveyard. Sometimes this has been a bit of a win con, sometimes you can fluff with this, but it's not a guaranteed win. Then our final win con for the deck is that Aetherflux Reservoir, and whenever we cast a spell we gain 1 life, and for each spell we've cast this turn, and we can pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. Need to be careful with this out and Vilis out at the same time, because it may be that we draw ourselves out if we have Vilis out at the same time, but it can be pretty devastating, especially if you've got something like Psychosis Crawler out and you draw 50 cards, so you can deal 50 damage to a player, draw 50 cards, deal 50 damage to the rest of the players and win the game that way. I've had that out once, but it's a limited win con, but it's pretty fun if you can get that off. And then finally we have our lands. We have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other types, which works really well with Cabal Coffers. 2, add 1 black for each swamp you control, or Cabal Stronghold, which taps for a colourless natively, or pay 3 and you tap to add for each basic swamp you control. Then we have Field of Ruin, which is tap, add a colourless, pay 2, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles. We have Homeward Path, tap, add a colourless mana to our mana pool, or each player gains control of each creature he or she controls, he or she owns. We have Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, which again is really important for our devotion. We can tap to add a colourless, or we can pay 2 into it, choose a colour, add mana to our mana pool of that chosen colour, that we have, however much devotion we have of that particular colour. And finally we have our standard command tower, which taps to add 1 mana of any colour in our commander's colour identity. We have Reliquary Tower, which gives us no maximum hand size, and we can tap it to add a colourless. Witch's Cottage, which enters the battlefield tapped unless we control 3 or more other swamps. When Witch's Cottage enters the battlefield untapped, you may put a target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Then last but not least, we have 28 basic swamps. So thank you so much for watching our video. The deck list is in the description below. Please like, subscribe, comment should you enjoy our content, and if you want to have a look at our deck lists on Moxfield, please find the link below. We also have links for our Discord. Come play games with us, enjoy free content for visitors to the channel, which will be upcoming soon. We welcome all players to our community from all walks of life, so please feel free to come and introduce yourselves. We look forward to seeing you there. Good luck and goodbye.